Last week, Canon reported better than expected operating income. And today, Sony reported a 20% increase in their operating income. Did Sony develop an 8K Micro Four Thirds sensor? Has this new sensor found its way into the Panasonic GH6, giving it 8K video? This and more after the intro. Hi, I'm Simon. Thanks for tuning into The Ordinary Filmmaker. Subscribe to get notification of new videos like this one so you don't miss any news, rumors, gear reviews, or tutorials. And to make things a little bit more exciting, I'm giving away a brand new Canon EOS R5 full-frame mirrorless camera to one lucky viewer. Details are in the description down below, or you can watch this video here, but please look at the terms and conditions as there are some age and location restrictions. And now for the news. 43 Rumors confirms that Sony will launch one new Micro Four Thirds sensor in 2021. This sensor will be able to record 8K video and have a 30+ megapixel resolution. Now, I have little doubt this is the sensor that Panasonic will use in the GH6. Okay, let's back this up a little bit. To have 8K video, the sensor size would need to be a minimum of 33.2 megapixels. Now, that's if it has a 16:9 aspect ratio. All stills hybrid sensors that I'm aware of have a 3:2 aspect ratio, which means that the sensor would have to have 39.4 megapixels as a minimum. So when 43 Rumors says that we're getting a 30+ megapixel sensor, well, it's going to have to be at least 10 megapixels plus over that. You're really going to have 40 megapixels if you're using a 3:2 aspect ratio. Let's take a look at other cameras and what sensors they're using. The Canon R5, well, it has a 45 megapixel sensor and it provides 8K DCI. Well, the Sony Alpha 1 has a 50 megapixel sensor and provides 8.6K oversampled 8K. Now, regardless of the authenticity of this rumor, I'd really be surprised if the GH6 doesn't have an 8K sensor. Sharper is already hard at work on an 8K video, and they've been doing it for a couple of years. 8K is no longer just a passing fad, but it's what I would consider a must-have top-shelf video capability, as there's a growing need for 8K in various segments like to sports broadcasting, the Olympics, major sporting events. But for us ordinary filmmakers, well, it's largely ignored. It's not something that we have a need for, or even do we have the computers that are capable of editing this? My computer can handle 8 or 4K quite well, but 8K, well, I got to jump through hoops. I got to convert it to Apple ProRes 422, and once I start editing, it can be a bit of a nightmare. Now, those M processors from Apple, they could change that. But even 4K has significant requirements that make it difficult to edit for most. Canon reported 2020 financial statements last week. They exceeded expectations. Canon's imaging segment saw a 49% rise in its operating income over 2019. They managed to do this with a 25% year-over-year decrease in sales, likely due to the pandemic and manufacturing challenges, and of course raising the prices for us. Now, it shouldn't be a surprise that Sony, with the release of the A7S III, also has a good year. Sony reported a 20% increase in operating income. This is less than what Canon reported, but keep in mind that Sony's a much bigger corporation, and their report of 20% increase in operating income is corporate-wide. Now, they also managed to sell the same number of cameras from the previous year. Now, while not as high as Canon, I still think this is great. This solid earnings from both companies will keep them battling it out in the top 2 spots. Good news for Canon customers, Sony customers, and employees alike. Do you remember the popular YOngua YN685 competitor to the Canon Speedlight? Well, they've gone and released an update aptly named the YN685 Mark II. It's compatible with Nikon and Canon systems. The Mark II will have a guide number of 60 meters at ISO 100 with a flash zoomed in to 200 millimeters. And now, let's go behind the scenes. If you set the Sony Alpha 1 to a high heat tolerance, the camera can record a good solid hour of 8.6K oversampled 8K video. However, a user brought it to my attention that when using a high heat tolerance mode, it can get hot enough for Sony to include this warning in the manual. If the same part of your skin touches the camera for a long period of time while using the camera, even if the camera doesn't feel hot to you, it may cause symptoms of a low temperature burn such as redness or blistering. Pay special attention to the following situations and use a tripod. Now, this doesn't mean that the Sony Alpha 1 will overheat badly enough to melt the insides and give you third-degree burns. This is just a standard warning that Sony provides in their cameras. It's not alluding to an overheat gate like we had with the Canon R5. And this likely happened as a result of some lawsuit and a cautious lawyer that said we need to put this in there. Now, the viewer that brought this to my attention thought it was a little bit strange to have this statement in a manual, and really it isn't. We have all sorts of strange warnings in manuals, quite often because of lawsuits or cautious lawyers. Any camera with a body this size that records 4K or 8K video for a long period of time is going to get hot inside, and we're talking about temperatures over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's going to get warm to the touch, and this is normal. But it may also cause skin irritation, especially for people with sensitive skin. And my only concern would be continued use of these video recording features on the circuit board. Now, over time, high heat, when you're constantly heating up the internals from basically room temperature up to 120, 130 degrees, basically anything over about even 80 or 90 degrees Celsius. I'm jumping between Celsius and Fahrenheit. Sorry, I do that. I grew up under two different systems. I grew up in New Zealand where we had the imperial system, then I came to Canada where we have the metric. So every now and then I just use them interchangeably. I do apologize for the confusion. But essentially, whenever you're running really high heat, what happens? Things heat up. Things increase in size. You have that shrink, you heat up, you expand, you cool things down, they shrink. Now, over time, this repetition, what it tends to do is it can cause cracks in the PCB or the circuit board, which can break circuits. It can also cause chips to pop, boards to warp, and other things that will eventually cause a failure. Now, the only way to overcome this is using better design or better thermals, have a larger body with an active cooling system. Now, at present, all modern cameras generate a lot of heat, especially the ones that are doing any sort of 4K video for any amount of time. The biggest challenge is getting that heat from the inside to the outside, and that's why we're seeing a lot of talk. Since Sony started coming out with 4K, guess what? We started to see overheat. Canon came up with the R5, overheat warnings, and the Alpha 1, again, we've got overheat warnings. You got a low tolerance and high tolerance, and that can adjust how much you record. So keep in mind that this is still a stills hybrid camera. All of these cameras that we've talked about here today, the Sony, the Canon, the Panasonic, they're stills hybrid cameras. They're not primarily designed for video. If you want much better thermals, you are going to have to go to a video-centric camera. And while we're talking about video and editing, I want to talk a little bit about editing 8K, 4K, and 1080. As some of you might be aware, my R5 has been sent off for service, so I'm no longer recording in 4K. I'm no longer recording in 4K HQ. I'm actually recording in 1080 on the EOS R. And I got to tell you, I feel 100 pounds lighter. When I take the SD card, yes, I'm recording on an SD card, and it's only 128 gigs, but when I take it into my computer, I realize, oh my God, I've only recorded about 10 gigs. Well, that's because 1080 doesn't require much size, and editing it, exporting it is so easy on my computer and me and time, allowing me to get these videos out so much quicker. So this, for example, I recorded at 7 o'clock this morning. You might be watching it at noon or 10 o'clock, depending on how quickly I was able to get it edited. But the 4K is pretty heavy lifting. Now, I generally convert all my videos to ProRes 422, with the exception of these YouTube videos. I just don't have the time, and I don't think it really saves me much time because I'm not rendering multiple times. So it does take a lot of time to edit, takes a lot of time to export, and there are some lags, frame drops every now and then. But editing 8K? Well, editing 8K, I have to convert to ProRes, and you're going to have one heck of a beefy machine. Now, Apple did say in their previous keynote speech where they talked about their M processors, in particular the M1, they made a drop where you were actually able to record 8K video in ProRes. So these were ProRes files, and it recorded 8K video without skipping a beat. And these were on the entry-level computers. And that's what's staggering. So I'm really curious to see what Apple does. I don't see Intel responding for any time soon, so we're not going to see this on Linux and Windows anytime soon, unless, of course, ARM comes out with something for Linux-based machines. But for Apple, I really do see the M processor as a huge game changer for editing video, especially 8K and 4K video. But we'll just have to wait and see where this goes. But that's it for now. Don't forget to subscribe for your chance to win 2 Angelbird 128GB AV Pro MK2 B90 UHS UHS-2 SD cards, as well as a dual UHS-2 reader. You could also win a Ulanzi LED light package with accent lights, underwater lights, and various other flat panel lights. I'll be awarding these two prize bundles once the channel reaches 30,000 subscribers, and then I'll offer up a different prize bundle every 10,000 until I reach 100,000. Now, once I reach this rather significant milestone, I'll be awarding a brand new Canon EOS R5 full-frame mirrorless camera. And on that bombshell, thanks for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. We'll see you again soon.